Hello and welcome. This is Deb Hoekstra coming to you from the studios of Bee Bug Creations. And today I'd like to show you how to use a blender pen and markers to color a stamped image. And this is a blender pen. Stampin' Up! Sells these. It's a dual-tipped pen with a point at each end. And there is clear liquid inside this pen, and the clear liquid is what spreads the ink around. So this is the blender pen that I'm going to be showing you how to use today. This is the image I'm going to be coloring. It's the Truly Grateful stamp set from the New Occasions 2014 Stampin' Up! Catalog. And the color markers that I'm going to be using are Strawberry Slush, Daffodil Delight, Gumball Green, and Coastal Cabana. And as you can see here, I have taken the markers. I've taken the wide tip end of the marker, and I have scribbled onto a palette that I've created. And this palette is just a piece of plastic that I had laying around. You can also use the inside of your ink pads to make a palette, or any other piece of plastic. Paper plates, like the plastic paper plates, work as well. And so you can see I've got my 4 colors scribbled on this palette. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the blender pen, and I'm going to pick up some of the ink. I'm going to start with the Strawberry Slush. And the blender pens hold a lot of ink, so you don't need to refill them quite a bit. As you'll see, they'll hold a lot of ink. So I'm going to start with the center part of this flower here. And I want that to be a little darker, so that's why I started in the center. And then I'm going to just kind of work out from the center, filling in those lines, and you'll see how quickly it goes here. And you can also see as I'm working here how the color is getting lighter and lighter as I go. As I've used up more color from the pen, the color as it gets to the outside, as you see here, gets to be very, very, very light. But look how much I'm doing with just that first little pickup of ink that I did. I've got another flower here that I'm going to do. So again, I went back to pick up my ink. I'm going to start in the center because that's what I want to be the darkest. That's where I want my dark shading to be, is in the center. And then on this one, the other place where I want it to be dark are these little leaves here. And as you're coloring an image, you can kind of decide for yourself where the dark and the light should be. And then these petals here, I want to be lighter. So I'm just going to kind of fill in. I think I want them a little darker than that. That was a little too light. So then I'm just going to come back and fill in a little bit more color. And you can kind of see how it's shaded. As the liquid from the blender pen dries, you can come back and you can add a little bit more shading around some of the edges. I want the edges of these to be a little darker, so I'm going to come back and kind of darken them like that. And this time I'm picking up the ink because I want to make sure to have some darker ink. And then like here I'm thinking, oh, this is a little bit too much of a contrast, so I'm going to use my blender pen, and I'm just going to pull from the darkest area to the lightest area and see if I can get that to blend a little bit more. See how I'm just pulling from the darkest to the lightest, and it kind of smooths out those lines and adds a bit of shading. So I'm done with my Strawberry Slush color. So the way to clean the blender pen is to just kind of scribble on a white piece of paper, and you don't see there, this looks like it's pretty well clean. Even though the tip looks like it's red, it's just stained from the ink, and it won't come off on any of the colors. So the next color I want to do is I'm going to do the leaves, and I'm going to do those in green. So I'm going to use my blender pen, and I'm going to pick up some green. And for these leaves here, I'm going to draw right down the center, because I want the darkest part of these leaves to be in the center, like so. And then I'm going to take my pen and I'm just going to kind of pull out from that center to color in those leaves. Coloring with a blender pen is really a fast, easy way to add color without messing with watercoloring and stuff like that. So here I want to do these again. I'm going to pull down the center of these leaves. These two little ones I'm just going to color in. I'm going to go back and kind of fill in the white spots here. And you can kind of see where it stays darker down the center. Now for these leaves that are just in half, I'm just going to very quickly go and fill those in. I'm not too worried about shading on these. I just want to have some color. So I'm going to just kind of go and fill these in, and you see how quickly I'm moving through this. There. So all of my green leaves are done. I'm going to go back here and clean my blender pen, and as you can see this time I did get some green off of it. So the next color I'm going to move to is yellow, and when you move from a darker color to a lighter color, you want to make sure that your blender pen really is clean, and I'm going to test it on here because I just want to make sure that I don't have any green excuse me, mixed in with that yellow. So here I go. I'm going to pick up the color with my blender pen, and on these yellow flowers, again, I'm going to want the center to be a little darker. So I'm going to go and I'm going to do that first, and I'm going to pick up my color on my pen, and I'm going to do the center. And then I'm going to go back here and pick it up, and I'm just going to add some color out away from the center, like so. And then here we go, out from, just going to kind of fill it in with the lighter color around the edge. And again, like I said, if you want to make them darker after they dry, you can go back and add a little bit more color. I'm going to add the blue on this, and then I'm going to go back and add a little bit more color on the yellows. So give it a chance to dry. My last color is Coastal Cabana, and I'm going to pick up the blue, and I'm going to do these little flowers here in the Coastal Cabana. And I want to make sure that these little tips right here are dark. So I'm going to fill those in first and make sure those are really dark. And then I'm going to go back and fill in the rest of the flower like so. And my image is all colored. Now, I want the yellow to be a little bit brighter, so I cleaned my pen, and this should be dry by now. You can kind of tell if it is, you can feel it. So I'm going to go back, and I'm going to put just a little bit more yellow around the outside, just to make it a little bit more brighter. And once your image is all colored, you've got a beautiful image that's left. And I'll move this a little closer so you can see in the camera, and you can kind of see the shading, and you can see here where it's darker and lighter, and you can it kind of gives a watercolor effect without having to use watercolor paper and lots of water. So that is a demonstration on using the blender pen with Stampin' Write markers. Thank you for joining me. I hope you learned something new. You can visit my blog at www.bbugcreations.com, where I have lots more great ideas for you. Thank you much.